Today I'm going to try to make my landing bird logo. I'll be using this piece of 3/8 inch thick cherry, a lovely wood that's easy to work. I made a template for the outline, and with a spritz of spray adhesive, I'll stick this bird onto the wood. Once it's dry, it's time for the scroll saw. I'm taking it nice and easy and keeping an eye on things, since cherry is prone to scorching and burning. While I work on that, where did the name landing bird even come from? Well, one of my main interests is nature photography. I've always loved nature and being able to capture a tiny moment of it with a camera. In August 2022, I took this photo of a kestrel landing in a tree. It's a nice pose all around, wings, tail, legs. I've always liked it. A few months later, I was plotting out this YouTube channel, and I realized I needed a woodworking alter ego. While going through some of my photos to find inspiration, I saw the kestrel and the words landing bird immediately came to me, and I knew that was it. So with a little clicking around in Photoshop, I turned that picture into a logo, and landing bird was born. When that's all cut out, I'll refine some edges with the Dremel, then clean up the tight spots with a small file. Now I'll start making the triangle. I could have cut these pieces on the scroll saw as well, but I thought it might be easier to do the long, straight lines with a handsaw. And I'd hate for my arm muscles to atrophy from a lack of sawing. I cut the 3 sides from the cherry board, roughly cut off the angled ends, then finish it up with a small disc sander to get the ends precisely angled. Then I'll cut a gap into one of the sides to fit the cross piece. Now it's just a matter of carefully fine-tuning the 5 pieces so they all fit together nicely. During this process, I sanded a little too far on one and had to remake it, but fortunately these are pretty quick and easy to make. Once things fit, it's time to glue them up. I swear, there's still enough left in this bottle. Okay, there we go. The glue up was a bit of a fiddly process, but eventually I did get all the pieces to align. Unsurprisingly, after the glue dried, there were some noticeable gaps between the joints of the cross piece. A little glue and sawdust takes care of that. I rubbed some into all the joints just to make sure any minuscule spaces would be filled in. This is going to have a backing piece behind the triangle, which I'm making out of this 1/4 inch aspen. To cover the width of the triangle, I need to glue up 2 pieces into a larger panel. I bought this board at a home center out of curiosity, but I really despise the stuff. The appearance is fine, but cutting it produces the most annoying fuzzy fluff that clogs up saws and sandpaper. I'll be glad once it's used up. With that glued, I'll even up the sides. The back will sit in a little from the outer edge of the cherry triangle. Then I'll clean out the joints and remove any glue squeeze out. A chisel works for the outside surfaces, and an X-Acto knife works for the tight inside angles. Now I can give everything a final sanding. I just want to very slightly soften all the edges around the bird and the triangle. This will give it a much nicer, more finished look instead of just leaving it as is with sharp edges. and the back gets painted black. I've taped over the areas that will be glued to ensure a good wood-on-wood bond. I also tape over the areas that will be glued on these two pieces. Then the cherry parts get rubbed with some oil. I just love how the cherry comes to life here. To get in all the nooks and crannies between the feathers, I used a Q-tip first, and then just an edge of a piece of paper dipped in oil to reach all the way down into the narrowest spaces. Before I take the tape off the back, I'm going to brush it with some clear acrylic sealer. This will protect the paint and give it a slight shine instead of the matte finish that it is now. Now assembly can begin. First I'll glue the back and triangle together. I want to use a very minimal amount of glue because any squeeze out at this stage is going to be difficult to clean up. With those stuck together, I need a way to hang this once it's done. So I'll mark a space for a little metal hanger and drill out a shallow recess. When you're doing stuff like this, be sure to block all the action with your arm, like I'm doing here. Then I'll square up the edges with a chisel. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it won't be visible. These hangers come with tiny nails for attaching, but I don't want to risk splitting the wood, so I'm just gluing it in place. It's not a heavy piece, so this should hold just fine. And at last, the kestrel can take its place. A little bit of glue, and that gets left to dry. And the landing bird is done. I think the cherry ended up looking really nice, and it will darken over time. If I made this again, I would skip painting the back and instead just use a piece of nice hardwood. Maybe walnut for the logo and maple for the back, something like that. Thanks for watching.